Yo, what's up? What's up? What's good? What's good? Shalom. I know y'all see the title. Uh, is America in the Bible? Or is it Babylon? And came, so I came about the title because a friend of mine asked, about how is America related to the Bible, or if it's talked about or whatever, right? So we're gonna go into it. Short answer, yes. But we're gonna, go through the precepts and prove how America is Babylon that's spoke about in the Bible. So we're gonna go through the precepts, to prove that, And so yeah, of course, all praises to the Most High. We do so in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, right? So so we're gonna try to, this, I was thinking about maybe making this like a two-part, lesson, but you know what I'm saying? But I think we can do it all in this one go around, right? So without further ado, we got a lot of precepts to get through. So yes, we're gonna start off with Daniel, the book of Daniel, right? Chapter 2 and 31, right? Because if you're familiar with the prophet Daniel, and so when he was when they were in captivity to the Babylonians, it was a king, and he had a dream, and he couldn't remember his dream. So he asked like his so-called magicians and stuff like that, people, his spiritual advisors at that time, to break down his dream, even though he couldn't remember the dream, right? So, but it took a man of God by the name of Daniel, uh, you know, to give them the understanding, the interpretations. So we're gonna get into that part. So you're gonna start at Daniel 2 and 31, right? So like I said, so we're gonna start off from the 'cause, from this point, then we're gonna work our way back to understanding Babylon and how America relates to it, right? And that this is our final captivity, right? So then let's go. So Daniel 2 and 31. Thou, O King, sawest, behold, the great image. This is the great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. So, like I said, keep in mind the king couldn't remember his own dream, but Daniel, being a prophet and getting the understanding from the Most High God, was given the understanding of his dream so he can break it down to him. So he's seeing the statue, right? He's saying that the statue was, terrible to look at because it was like, had different things going on with it. Says this image head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, and his belly and his thighs of brass, and his legs of iron, and his feet part iron and part clay. Right. So now Babylon, you know, they'll tell you that Babylon was because you now this is the statue is basically breaking down the world superpowers throughout the annals of time, starting off with Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian Empire. Then you get into the Persian and Medes. Then you get into the Greeks. Then the Romans. Then then America and all that stuff, right? So and it all just showing you the different superpowers throughout the times. So now Babylon represent that the gold part of the statue, which is the top hegemony of all the civilizations. Because Babylon is still famous to this day. So it says the image of the head was fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, and his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron, his feet part of iron and clay, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou saw saw us tell that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were the iron and the clay and break them into pieces. So, cutting to the chase, that stone is Yahushua, who the world will call Jesus. That will come and to destroy all these, nations, right? All these different rulerships. So it says, then then was the iron and the clay, the brass and the silver and the gold broken into pieces together and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floor, and the wind carried them away. No place was found for them, and the stone that smote the image became a great mountain. And we know, uh, biblically speaking, the word mountain means government. So when Christ come back, the government of Yahweh, of the Israelites, was going to be established, and it's going to be a world power. So, um, and it says, and smote the image and became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Because we're going to have dominion over the world. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou art, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heavens have given thee a kingdom, power, and strength and glory. So, like I said, Babylon was like it's the pinnacle of civilization. They were like the first world superpower, and so so that's why they are represented as the head of gold, right? So it says, and whosoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of heaven have given unto thy hand, and have made thee ruler over them all. Thou art the head of gold. So Daniel is letting them know, okay, yeah, you represent the head of gold. God gave you the dominion of the known world. So you the hegemon. In the boom 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 boom. And after thee rise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall rule over the earth, and a fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for much as iron breaketh in pieces, and subdue all things, and as the iron has broken all things, shall it break in pieces and bruise. So now this is talking about the Roman Empire. It's that will come up in power. So it goes from the Babylonians to the Persians and Medes, Greeks, then the Romans, right? So it says, whereas thou hast saw the feet and toes, uh, part of the potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. So now this is talking about America. And the reason why it talks about the toes and stuff, because when you and being divided, because America, even though America is a country, but it works off a division, because you have what they call the House and you got the Senate. And for anything that happened in this country, the House and the Senate has to agree to a certain extent to get that bill or that law passed. But especially in this day and age, you have the Republicans versus the Democrats, and everybody fighting each other. So it's kind of hard for them to see eye to eye and be on one level. Because one had one idea how to rule, and the other one had a different idea. But ultimately, for them to get something done, they have to be together. So that's why it says it's partly strong, but also divided. It's strong because of their military might. America has the strongest military. But, as far as when it comes to governing, like I said, they're divided because they have their own ideas on how to run things, right? So it says, and as the toes and the feet were part iron and part clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou saw the iron mixed with myrrh and clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of man. So now this is getting into this, how they say America is a melting pot, right? We have all different nationalities here in America because America pushed that oneness, where everybody called themselves American, right? But the reason why they're divided because America has something called racism. So that's why everything is not together how it should be. That's why you have iron mixed with clay, you know, because since we have that division, in the form of racism, it's hard for everybody just to see eye for eye. Now, even though America is what they call a chip off the old block of, Babylon, but when Babylon was in control, it wasn't no racism. Everybody was under that umbrella of being one. But, you know, here in America, like I said, racism play a big part in a lot of their politics. So that's why you have the partly strong and partly weak, right? So, in in the days of these kings shall be uh, the God of heaven uh, set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. Meaning, when we get back into our rulership, you know, that we're not going to have to worry about being conquered again. We're not going to have to worry about being taken back into, you know, servitude. Again, once we get back into our rightful position, we're going to stay there forever, right? So it says, in the days of the kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and that kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and stand forever. For much as thou hast sawest the stone was cut out of the mountains without hand, and that it break in pieces the iron and the brass and the clay and the silver and the gold, the great God have made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and a dream is certain and the interpretation thereof for sure, right? So he's letting Nebuchadnezzar know, like, hey, after your great rulership, after your kingdom fall, there's going to be other kingdoms behind you, but they're not going to be as great as you. And as the other kingdoms keep coming into power, it get weaker and weaker and weaker. That's why the statue starts off with gold. So then it goes from gold to silver. Then it goes from silver to bronze. And so when you look at it in the metal, you know, as far as terminologies when you're dealing with different metals and precious jewels, gold is superior. Then as you your way down the statue, you finally get down to the iron. Iron is like not as expensive as gold, right? So in America is that kingdom that is iron. So basically, it's saying that America, they're not as powerful as Babylon and the other superpowers that ruled before them, because like I said, they have that division, right? So let's go to now let's get into the context of Babylon, right? Let's go to Genesis real quick. It's just like I said, the easiest way is to say yeah, but we also have to prove what we say. Because I don't want you to just take my word for it. So we're gonna go to the scriptures and let the scriptures speak for itself. The precepts. So we're gonna start at Genesis 11 and 1. And we're gonna read down to 9, right? So it says the whole earth was of one language, and in of one speech, because you know everybody spoke Hebrew, during that time, right? That was the first language. And then it tells you, we'll read on. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Sinai. Sinai is in the modern day Iraq, right? And they dwelt there, and they said one another, "Go, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly." And that they had bricks, excuse me, that they had bricks for stone, and slime they had for mortar. And they said, "Go, go to, let us build a city in a tower, those who top may reach unto heaven. So now when you go to church or whatever, so the church would tell you that the Tower of Babel was, they was trying to, build the tower to, for they can, have a way to go up to God or whatever, right? Or, try to hide, next time a flood happened. But no, the Tower of Babel was basically, a temple that they were building. You know, it was building a temple on top of a mount or whatever, right? So, so it says, and they said, "Go, let us build." Okay, I read. And the Lord came down, and the Lord came down and see the city of the tower which the children of man had built. So let's get a precept for that, because because people don't want to say that the Lord came down. I mean, it's talking about his angels, right? Because he sent his angels, and they go around and they report things that's happening, and that's going on, right? So we go to Zechariah real quick. Go to Zechariah 4:10. So it says, "For who hath despised the day of the small thing? For they shall rejoice and shall see the plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel and those seven, which are the eyes of the Lord." So it's talking about these angels that goes around reporting, and they go to and fro from the earth, and let God know what's going on. So these angels, see these people building this tower. So they went back up to God to let him know, hey, these people is building this tower. So then y'all see what happens. So it says, and the Lord said, "Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this shall they begin to do. Now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do." So now this is what you got to understand. Now America pushes that oneness, that we are one. But according to the Bible, now we're in the beginning of the Bible. This is Genesis, the first book of Genesis. I mean, the first book of the Bible is Genesis. So we see right here that God is not with the whole "we are the world" type stuff. Now, if you go a little further, a few chapters earlier, he flooded the world. Why? Because people were going around trying to be "we are the world." That's why he ended up saving Noah, because Noah, they said that Noah generation, he was perfect in his generation, meaning he wasn't going and mixing with the rest of the people. He was sticking with his own people. So, in so many words, the Lord is a separatist, right? And but here, you know, they'll tell you like, oh, Jesus came to bring everybody together and all that stuff. But we see that God flooded the world for that, and we see that right here as as we continue reading on, that God divided the world because of that. He ended up giving us different languages and all that stuff, right? With the base language being the Hebrew. So so it says, "Let us go down and uh, go go to, hold on, let me read it right. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from hence upon the face of the earth." So he began to, you know like I say, he sent his angels down to scatter the people, to divide the language, right? And that's why too, when you get into linguistics, you'll see that a lot of languages are connected, you know, and they're like an offshoot of different other languages, like how you got what they call the Romance languages, like Spanish, uh, Latin, even though that's all together, the uh, English, all this stuff, right? all these languages, come from the Latin and the Germanic languages, right? So, and like I said, when you get into the whole languages, like I said, it'll tell you that a lot of languages are offshoots of other ancient languages, with the Hebrew being the first language being spoken. So, boom, boom. So it says, so the Lord scattered them abroad from hence upon the face of the earth, and they left off to build the city. Thereof is the same. It's called Babylon, Babel, right? And the word Babel means confusion. So it's called Babel because of the Lord did thereof confound the languages of all the earth, and hence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth, right? So we got divided through our languages and our, um. So let's get a Micah real quick. Go to Micah 4:10, right? Excuse me. So Micah 4:10 says, "Be in pain and labor and bring forth, O daughter of Zion." Zion is another word for Israel or Jerusalem. Like a woman in travail, for now shall go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the field, and thou shalt go even into Babylon. Now, this is a future prophecy, right? So, when we get into proving that America is Babylon, when you get into this prophecy of Micah, it says, "Be in pain, and the labor bring forth, O daughter of Zion. Be like a woman in travail." Meaning, you're going to have some hardship and some, rough times when the Romans in 70 AD kicked us out of Israel. And it says, "You shall go forth out of the city being Jerusalem, and thou should go into the field being the western coast of Africa," right? And because when you understand that the history of the west coast of Africa, it was a wilderness. It wasn't nobody living on the west coast of Africa. Before we, went over there and developed civilization over there, right? It's no history of West Coast Africa, before 70 AD, right? So it says, like a woman in travail, now shall go forth out of the city, thou shalt dwell in the field, and thou shalt go even into Babylon, where thou shalt be delivered. So now, this is how we proven that America is Babylon, because we've been in captivity to the ancient Iraq, which was, called Babylon at that time. But when we went into captivity with Babylon, we went straight to Babylon. We didn't go, you know, into the wilderness. When we got taken into Babylon, we got shipped straight there, right? So it says, boom, boom, boom. It says, even so, like a woman in travail, for now thou go forth into the city and shall dwell in the field, and even shall go even to Babylon. There shall be delivered. There the Lord shall redeem thee from the hands of thy enemies. Right. So that's how we know that we're talking about this future Babylon. Right. So let's get Jeremiah real quick. After Jeremiah 18 and 17. Right. It says, "I will scatter them as the east wind before the enemy." Right? So now think about this. It says the east wind, right? Now, if you have a wind blowing from the east, then whatever is blowing on is going to move towards the west. So that east wind was us being pushed and forced into the west coast of Africa. So that's how we ended up in the west coast of Africa through conquest of the Roman Empire, right? So then they forced us into northern Africa. Then we had to further migrate into to the west part of Africa. So it says, um, I will scatter them as a east wind before the enemy. I will show them. Um, I will slew them the back and not the face in the day of their calamity. So saying that he's gonna, force us into, to the western parts of Africa, right? So let's get a Revelation real quick, right? Go to Revelation 12 and 1. So, because we gotta understand, like I said, we gotta not only understand that America is Babylon, and and how to also prove it. You know what I'm saying? So we can know. And it says, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, her head of crowns of 12 stars. It's talking about the 12 tribes of Israel, right? It's not talking about a literal woman. It's talking about the 12 tribes of Israel. And she began with a child crying in travail, like we just read um, in Micah about the. Oh, like we just read in Micah 4 and 10 about us being in like a woman in travail, like when she's going through labor pains, right? So it's the same verbiage, the same terminologies that we see here. So we know that these prophecies are connected, right? So back to 12, it says, there appeared a great wonder in the sign, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with a child, cried, traveling birth pains to be delivered. There appeared another wonder in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon. This is talking about the Roman Empire. It's not a literal dragon, because in church they'll teach you that, oh, this is the spiritual demon Satan, right? No, but this is talking about the Roman Empire. It says, in the period, uh, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns. This is talking about the different providence and nation states that was connected to Rome, right? And it says having 7 crowns on their head, and his tail drew a third part of the stars. A third part of the stars is talking about the Israelites, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, which will be today the so-called African Americans, Jamaicans, and Haitians. So they attacked us while we was in Jerusalem, because the other 9 tribes was already scattered when you get into the history. So so then we got scattered through the Roman Empire. Then that's how we fled into the western coast of Africa. So it says, in boom, boom, boom. And his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven, and he did cast them down to the earth, meaning he kicked us out of Jerusalem. And the dragon stood before the woman which is ready to be delivered for to devour the child as soon as it was born. Talking about, now this is getting into Yahushua, and during that time when, Herod was, had put a decree out to try to kill him, right? So so like I said, so when we get into these prophecies, we see. So let's go back to Micah, right? Go to Micah, start it up. So it says, but you start at 1. So this you start at 1. So it says, but in the last days it shall come to pass. So now we know what we're talking about, because it says in the last days. It says in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains. So, like we read in Daniel, how it said that you know that the mountain became that the stone became a great mountain. So you see how it all runs cohesive now. So it says, but in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and the people shall flow unto it. And many nations shall come and say, Come, let us go to the mountains of the Lord, in the house of God of Jacob, and he shall teach us his ways, and we will walk in his path. For the law shall go forth out of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem, right? So, as we can see, it's talking about this, giving you this, the end time connotations of what's going to happen. You know, then it says, if I just get Isaiah 61 real quick. 61 and 5, right? And and it says, and the stranger shall stand and flee your flocks. Because remember, you just read that the people should come, uh, to and hold on, let's go back to it, right? And it says, many nations shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountains, right? Of the house of the Lord, right? And it says, let's go down to 3. And it says, He shall judge. Yeah, he shall judge among many people and rebuke strong nations afar off, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares. Because, when we're in rulership, it's not going to be no more war, because we're going to be ruling in righteousness. And everybody going to know that we are the people of God. And then after, you know, all this prophecy take place, they ain't going to want no more smoke, right? So it says, the big beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pine hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither should they learn war anymore. Because, like I said, we're gonna be in control, and we ain't gonna have none of that. So now back to Isaiah 65:5. So 61:5. I'm sorry. So it says, "And the stranger shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the alien should be your plowman and your vine dresser." Like we just read, that they're gonna turn their swords into plowshares. They're gonna become workers instead of figuring out how they can make the next weapon. They're gonna be trying to figure out how they're gonna be able to, pick this cotton, plant these seeds, farm this land for the benefit of Israel, which is the Black, Hispanic, and Native American people, right? So let's get back. Let's go to Matthew, right? Let's jump up to the New Testament. Like I said, I'm trying to run through this quick though, because like I said, it's a lot. Hopefully, like I said, any questions that of course, you can always ask questions and we can, go over it. So it says, go to Matthew 25 real quick and 31. So it says, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all of the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of glory, right? So that's what's going to be happening during that time. When all these nations are, eventually subjugated under us, right? So then, let's go back to Micah. We'll go to Micah. We can go to 4. So then, says, but they shall set every man under his vine and under his fig, and none shall make them afraid, for the mouth of the Lord of hosts have spoken. Right. So now what that means is everybody's going to be dealing with their own people. They're not going to be trying to, go and invade this country, trying to steal from these people. Everybody's just going to be amongst themselves, right? That's what it means by under his fig tree, and under his vine, right? And it says, for all people will walk everyone in the name of his God, meaning everybody's gonna do their own thing, and we will walk in the name of the Yahweh, our power, forever and ever. So everybody's gonna be doing their own thing, and we're gonna be serving the Lord as Israelites, while everybody else is doing their own thing, right? So, and it says, and I will make, boom, 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 boom. Oh, in that day said the Lord, I will assemble her uh, that have, uh, and I will gather her, uh, that is driven out, and her that I have inflicted. I will make her a halt, a remnant in her that is cast far off with a strong nation. And the Lord shall reign over them in the Mount Zion, from hence, uh, even forever. Right. So the ones that's gonna be saved by the Babylon, the 1/3, because 2/3 of us is not gonna make it out of Babylon. So hopefully we're not a part of that number. Um, he's gonna establish us. And I mean, so we talking about Babylon, but you got to keep in mind that we're scattered in all these other nations, but just so happens it's only going to be 1/3 that actually make it out of these Americas. Um, so then, boom, 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 where I'm at. Oh, and thou, O tower of the flock, in the stronghold, the daughter of Zion, unto thee shall it come, even the first dominion, the kingdom shall come to the daughter of Jerusalem, right? So let's see what the first dominion is, because that's a lot of our that should be our our hope to be a part of that first dominion, right? I mean, because those are the ones that end up being saved, and actually, how they tell you in church, oh, I'm saved, but this is what being saved from. I mean, what being saved is actually talking about, being part of that first dominion when the Western Empire fall and we get delivered from out of their power, and then we being taken back to our own land and becoming a strong nation once again. So now this is Revelation 20, and we're gonna start at 6. It says, "Blessed and holy is he that have a part in the first resurrection." So the first resurrection is making it through this nuclear holocaust, this nuclear fire, and being there at the end. And it says, "Blessed and holy is he that have part in the first resurrection. On such the second death has no power." The second death is this nuclear fire, and along with what they call the lake of fire, because whether you like it, understand it or not, America will be that lake of fire when after the Third World War kicks off, right? So then it says, in one in on such the second death have no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. So that is that that first dominion, right? So let's get back. Let's go back to Micah real quick and get 9. It says, "Now why doest thou cry out loud? Is there no king in thee? Is this thy counselor perished? For things have taken thee as a woman in travail." So now we understand it. So now it's getting to the prophecy of us being taken out of Jerusalem, the 70 AD prophecy. So, uh, be in pain and labor and bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. Now shalt thou go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the field. Talking about West Africa. And thou shalt go even into Babylon. So from West Africa, what happened to us if we know the history? The so-called Europeans came and they took us and they brought us over here to the Americas. So that is us going into Babylon. right? And we got to understand that because these are prophecies. So now, if America's not Babylon, because some people say that the Vatican is Babylon, or they say different, you know, or they might say the Muslim countries over there is Babylon or whatever, right? But understanding these prophecies, if America is not Babylon, then that means as a people we have another slavery to look forward to. We have another group of people that's going to come and take us and put us in captivity again, right? So this is how we know that America is Babylon, because the Bible tells you that our last captivity will be under the so-called Edomites. I mean, under the Edomites, and the Edomites are what we will consider today the so-called Caucasian European, right? Um, and that happened, right? So it says, "In the pain and the labor bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. Now shalt thou go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the field, and thou shalt go even to Babylon. There shalt thou be delivered. There the Lord shall redeem thee from the hands of thy enemies." Right? So that's what we're looking for, to be delivered from the hands of our enemies. And who is one of our enemies? So let's see. Because it tells you, we go to Deuteronomy 28 and 68. Let's see what our enemies had done to us. So it says, "And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships." Talking about he's going to bring us into slavery again on ships. "By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt not see it no more again. And there you should be sold unto your enemies." So what happened to us when we got off them slave ships? We were sold unto our enemies, right? "And for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall redeem you," right? But we just read here that our Redeemer is the Lord, right? And it says, "And the Lord shall redeem thee from the hands of thy enemy." So that's why it says that no man will redeem you, because the Lord is going to do that redeeming. That's why Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, all these different civil rights leaders throughout the time wasn't fully successful in the liberation of our people, because God want that credit, right? So let's go to Micah. So we go back to Micah, right? "And now many nations are gathered against thee, that say, Let her be defiled. Let our eye look upon Zion." So it's talking about how these nations came together to take us down, right? So just jump to Revelation real quick. Go to Revelation 17:2, right? So Revelation 17:2 says, "Cause now we getting into like the whole understanding that America is Babylon." So we already understood that it's the prophecy of us being taken into Babylon, right? You know, after we spent some time in on the west coast of Africa, 1,000 and I want to say 1,120, 1,126 years on the west coast of Africa before they actually came and started messing with us again, right? So so it's Revelation 17:2. "So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast, full of the name of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns." So now this is talking about America, right? Because America is that woman that sit upon that beast. The beast is the EU and the NATO. America is the spearhead of NATO and the EU, because whatever America wants to do, the rest of the Western powers is going to go along with it, because America has, you know, brainwashed the rest of these countries into following them into whatever they want trying to do, right? So it says, boom, boom, boom. Start at one, and we rate it up and start at one. And there came one seven. And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sit upon many waters, right? So now you think about it. America is always personified as a woman, right? And understanding that, so that's why you got the Statue of Liberty, right? So just check this out right now. This is deep. So America, right? With the personification of a woman is called called Columbia, right? And you can, with a quick Google Wikipedia search, you can see this for yourself, right? And it says Columbia. It says Wikipedia. Columbia is the female national personification of United States, right? And just get an image, right? I don't know if y'all can see that real good. So this is how they, see themselves, right? As America, right? So let's go back up. It says Columbia is the female national uh, personification of United States. It is also the historical name applied to the Americas in the New World. The association is given rise to the names of many American places, right? So America it's kind of prophetic how in the Revelation it's called the Great Whore. Then we see that America personifies itself as a woman, right? And then and named itself Columbia, which is like a goddess, And so let's get back to it. So it says the great whore that sits upon many waters, and those many waters are like I said, the EU and the NATO, right? Because America controls those fashions. Because whatever America want to do, the Western empire powers, they're going to go along with it, right? So it says, with whom the kings of the earth had committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he had carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast, full of names of blasphemy and having seven heads and 10 horns. So it's talking about those same ancient Roman uh, provinces. I know I ain't saying the word right, but those different nation states that was connected to the ancient Rome are now the modern day EU and the NATO, right? The ancient Germanic countries and stuff are now in the modern day Israel. I mean, modern day United States. And just in case y'all, I'm gonna show y'all again. So right here, image off of Wikipedia, right? Then like I said, it tells you that America personifies itself as a woman, just like we reading about in Revelation when it calls America the whore, right? So let's get let's go to Jeremiah real quick. Go to Jeremiah 50 and no, hold on. Matter of fact, I'm sorry. Jeremiah 51 and 7, right? So it says Babylon had been a golden cup in the Lord's hand. So like I said, we read that in Revelation that America had gotten these nations drunk with their philosophies. So God is likening this place as a golden cup that He's been passing to these other nations, right? So it says, Babylon had been a golden cup in the Lord's hand and made all the earth drunk, and the nations have drunk of her wine thereof. The nations are mad. So this is why a lot of these nations is just so add up in ideology of America, right? Even you got the Japanese and the Asian people, right? They even drop their traditional clothing and start putting on little suits and ties and stuff, looking like American people, right? So they make a lot of the world drunk in their philosophies, right? So it says, Babylon has been a golden cup in the hand of the Lord, in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drink, and the nations have drunk of her wine thereof. The nations are mad. And it says Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Uh, how how for her taking blame for her pain, if so, she may may be healed, right? But of course, she's not going to be healed because this place is going to be utterly destroyed. So let's get back to Revelation, right? Let's go to uh, let's go to 3, right? Revelation 17. Boom. Go to 3. We're gonna read down. So it says, He carried me away in the spirit of the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet in color and decked in gold. Right? So when getting into this, because like when you get, especially like these countries, these people that be having dreams to come to America, they look at America like this is a shining city on the hill. Like this is the place to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, so they would, do anything to get over here, and they try to, be part of the get down. So it says, um, and the woman has arrayed in purple and scarlet colored and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations, filthiness, and of her fornications. Talking about her philosophies, pushing her way of life on everybody, right? You know, and then it says, upon her forehead was the name written, Mystery Babylon, the great mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. So America is running this place along with their allies to the ground, right? Then you have these eastern countries such as i.e. Russia, China, and whatnot. They're getting tired of, America throwing their weight around. So they want to come in and implement their own agenda now. So that's why you get these wars and stuff like that, these conflicts that we see on the news. Because you have the Western Empire versus the Eastern Empire, and they all trying to fight for total control, right? So it says, and I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints. So who are the blood of the saints? The Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans, because they kill us with impunity over here. And then, a lot of times they get off scot free for doing it. A lot of times they get a paid leave for doing it. They end up being able to retire with their pension. So it says they're being drunk with the blood of saints because they've been killing us since the days of slavery when they brought us over here, right? Then it says, and I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs of Yahweh. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. Meaning, so John is looking at this like, wow, this is a, a real piece of work, you know. So then, and the angel said unto me, it said, and the angel said unto me, whereas did marble, uh, wherefore did thou did thou marvel? I will show thee the mysteries of the woman, and the beast that carry her have 7 heads and 10 horns. So the beast that carry her is the EU and NATO, because, like I said, America sits on top of them. They run everything. Matter of fact, they got the UN, one of they got the UN thing in New York, right? So it says boom boom boom. The beast that have that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. Right. So what's the bottomless pit? You know, we went over this when we had broke down the whole book of Revelation. The bottomless pit is Europe because Europe don't have any natural resources. That's why a lot of those European countries they have to go and conquer the brown countries, to get their natural resources, right? So that's why Europe is considered and called the bottomless pit. So it says the angel says boom boom boom. So the beast that thou sawest was and was not. So what it's talking about is the Roman Empire, because during this time, John is dealing with the Roman Empire. So, but he's seeing a prophecy where when the current Roman Empire that they're dealing with is going to phase out, but then they're going to come back into power, and we know that happened during the Renaissance time, during the Renaissance era, right? Then it says, "The beast that thou sawest was and was not, and thou shalt ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition," meaning they're going to be destroyed when it's all said and done. "And they shall dwell on the earth and shall wonders those names and shall dwell on the earth and shall wonder. Those names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is." So what that means is when it says yet is talking about the current Roman Empire is gonna, but when it says it was and was not, meaning they died out, but then they're gonna come back, right? And they came back in the form of America, Britain, France, Spain, Portugal, Jamaica, all these different, Western European countries, right? With America being the top hegemony of it. So, and it says, and there is the mind which have wisdom. The seven heads are the seven mountains which the woman sitteth. So now these seven mountains, these like I said, those different European countries of the West. And there the seven kings, and five are fallen, and one is, and the other is not yet come. Talking so one is talking about the like I said, the Roman Empire, and the one that have not come yet is talking about America, because America, of course, America wasn't thought of during the time of the Book of Revelation being written. So it says, where am I at? Boom, boom, boom. It says, here is the mind of which hath wisdom. The seven heads are the seven mountains on which the woman sitteth, and there are seven kings. Five has fallen, and one is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue for a short space. So, like I said, it's only going to be for a little while. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth and is the seventh and goes into perdition. So it's talking about after, you know, because America took down Britain, it took down Spain, it took down French, the France, and so they became that beast, that seventh or that eighth, should I say, because Britain would be considered a seventh, and they continue, and they will go into prediction, meaning destruction, right? So and so just go to just go to back to Daniel real quick. So as we can see, like Revelation, so it's not going to just say, you know, like name America by name, because like think about it. Like we always say that this book is written in code. This book is made, written in a puzzle. That's why you see me going to, from one verse in this chapter or this book, then I might jump to another book and pick it back up again, because this is how this book is written. If the so-called European really fully understood this book, they would have burnt everything. It wouldn't be no copies of this book if they really understood what this book is talking about. Because this book is not made for everybody to understand it. You know, that's why it's written in such a way. So let's get Daniel 7, right? In 8, we're gonna go down to 14, right? And it says, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, that being America, before whom there was three of the first horns plucked up from his roots. Those three horns that was plucked up from the roots was Britain, Spain, and France, because America knocked them down so they could become into power, right? We know the history, the Revolutionary War. Then you had the other war of 1812, right? This, against the Spanish, because then they end up taking Mexico, and turned that into California, Nevada, Arizona, what we consider the west coast of America today, right? So it says, and I considered, and because the little horns before them were three horns first plucked down, blah blah. All right, up by the roots, and behold, the horns were eyes, the eyes of men, and the mouth speaking great things. So what is these eyes? These eyes are what we spoke about earlier. The two legislation branch here in America. You got the House and you got the Senate, and their eyes. So how they say to see eye to eye. So for order for anything to really take place in America, those two branches have to see eye to eye. One pass a bill, the other one has to be on the same wave for that bill to actually come into fruition. So they have to see eye to eye. So those eyes are talking about those two legislation branches. Then oh yeah. So then I behold till the thrones were cast down and the ancient of days did sit. So who's the ancient of days? It's talking about Yahweh, who the world calls God, and his name being Yahweh, right? So the ancient of days. Why is he the ancient of days? Because he doesn't. He's older than time, right? He always exists, right? That's why he's called the Ancient of Days. Who garment was white. So he had a garment on. So that means he has a body. You know, so a lot of people say, oh, well, God is this, God is that. But we see that God has a body because he has a garment on. Okay? You can't put a garment on something that doesn't have a body, right? So it says, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head were like the pure wool. So who got woolly hair on this planet? Black people. So God is a black man. He looked just like me and you, right? So it says, whose head was like the pure wool, his throne was like a fiery flame, and wheels were burning, was burning as fire, a burning fire. So God has basically that fire is like protection of the throne. You're not gonna just run up on fire. You know what I'm saying? You see like fire, big old heap of fire. You're not gonna just run through there like whatever, right? So that's so like I said, it's we're talking about, like I said, he has a body because it says, go back to it, boom boom boom, boom 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 boom. Hold on one second. Yeah, it says, I behold the thrones were cast down, and ancient of days did sit, whose garment was white as snow. So like I said, Yahweh, who the world calls God, had a garment on, so he has a body. And it says, um, and who was white as snow, the hair of his head was like the pure wool. So we have woolly textured hair, right? And in the pure wool, his throne was like uh, fiery flames, and his wheels as burning fire, right? Then it says, hold on, yeah. So it says, a fierce stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands and thousands ministered to him. Talking about he got like millions of angels surrounding him, right? Doing, at this time. And tens of thousand times 10,000 stood before him, and the judgment was set, and the books were opened. And I beheld then, because the voice of the great words which the horn spake, uh, I beheld even till the beast was slain. The beast being that NATO, that EU, they're they're being taken out of power, right? Uh, and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion and taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. Right? It says, I saw in the night vision, and behold, one like the Son of Man. So now it's talking about Yahweh Shai, Jesus, right? The Son of Man who came with the clouds of heaven and came into the Ancient of Days. And they brought him near before him, and there was given him dominion and glory and of the kingdom, that all people of nations and language serve should serve him. His dominion his dominion is an end forever. Uh, is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, in the kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. Right. So, like I said, because once he come and set up that government, we're gonna be in power, and our government is not gonna be destroyed. We're not gonna have to worry about anybody conquering us, kidnapping us again, putting us in slavery, making us work at their jobs for whatever how much they decide to pay us. We're not gonna have to worry about that. It's gonna be a role reversal, like that movie with Eddie Murphy, uh, changing trading places, right? It's gonna be like that. So moving on. Let's go to Jeremiah 50. So we know this is a Babylon, right? And because, like I said, we know this is Babylon through the prophecies. So, this is Jeremiah 50 and 33. Thus said the Yahweh of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah, meaning the northern kingdom of the Israelites and the southern kingdom of the Israelites, um, were oppressed together, and all that took them captive hold them fast. They refused to let them go. So this is talking about here in Babylon, because the northern kingdom would be the so-called, what we call the uh, Native America, our Spanish-speaking people. Whether you're from South America, Central America, then you have our Native Americans. You know, then that would be our northern kingdom. Then the southern kingdom would be like the so-called Haitians, Jamaicans, and the so-called what they call African Americans. Will be the southern kingdom. So it says that we are oppressed together. So when you go through the history of our people, you will know that other than the time that we were in Egypt together during the time of Joseph and Moses or whatever, that's the only time that we were in captivity together. Other than that, whenever uh, Babylon or Syria came, they took us separately. Syria took the northern kingdom, and Babylon took us and took the southern kingdom, right? So, but here it's telling you that in this future Babylon, you know, that we are oppressed together, right? So then when you get into let's go to this second Ezra. All right, second Ezra 6 and 7. We're gonna read the 10 real quick. So it says, so this is second Ezra 6 and 7. Then I answered and said, what shall be the pardon of sunder of the time? So Ezra is asking Yahweh, the Most High God, how are we going to know when, you know, what's going on with the prophecies, where we at in this thing, how long we have to go, right? It says, the sunder of times, or when will be the end of the first and the beginning of which follows. And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born, of him, Jacob hand held first the hill of Esau, right? So Jacob will be what we call the Israelites. So that's another name for saying Israel. And Esau will be what we'll call the so-called Caucasian European people, right? And it says, for Esau, this is the key part, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning that follows. So what this means is, when Yahweh Shah comes back, Jesus comes back, Esau is going to be ruling the world. So whoever Esau is, which we understand him to be the so-called European, you know, so-called Caucasian, he's going to be in power, right? So, so like I said, so it says, and Esau shall be the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of that follow. And the hand of man is betwixt the hill and in the hand. Other question Ezra asked not. So, and when it says the hand is betwixt man, meaning like, okay, it's all about us and the so-called European and people, right? But in between, you got other nations. So you might have other nations that come up and have power, but that's where it says that the hand of man is in betwixt the two. So even though like it's about us, but then in the middle you got them mixed up in the mix of it, right? But chiefly it says, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning that follows. So meaning that these people is going to be ruling at the end, and when Jesus come back. So, and we see that when you look around, these so-called European Esau people, they're in control. They rule everything, right? So that's how we know that we're at that end right now, because these people run the world, and according to prophecy, that this will be our last captivity, and like I said, like it just said, that they will be ruling at the end, right? So let's go to Lamentation real quick. We're almost done. I think we're moving through this a little quicker than I thought. Go to Lamentation 4:21. Read in Revelation about how they're got the world drunk off their cup. God says, hey, that cup that you passing around, you're gonna have to drink that cup too. Alright? So it says, rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwell in the land. Punishment of thy iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. Talking about Israel, talking about, okay, God is done punishing us. You know how like your parents put you on punishment? Like they might tell you, hey, go sit down, or, go to your room. Then after a certain period of time, they say, okay, you can come out. Okay, now you're not on punishment anymore. So it says, the punishment of thy iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion, talking about us Israelites. He will no longer carry thee away into captivity. So this is our last captivity, right? So this is how we know when it says that Esau is the beginning of Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the world that followed. We understand that this is our last captivity, and anybody that believes different, they just saying that we're going back into slavery again, and that's not biblical. And so it says, the punishment of thy iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will no more carry thee away unto captivity. He will visit thy iniquity, O daughter of Edom. Talking about the so-called European Caucasian. He will discover thy sins, right? So God is getting ready to judge these people. That's why you see so much stuff going on in America. That's why you see, the American dollar is falling. You know, we a few years ago we had the whole C-19 stuff happening. Even the little monkeypox scares and stuff like that. So he's getting ready to judge this place, right? Then, and if and anybody that wanna cling on to him and wrap themselves up in it, they gonna get the judgment too. Because you gotta understand, like, even though we are Israelites and God loves us, but God is just like, to simplify it, God is like that that person that does a drive-by shooting and shoot everybody that's standing out there. You know, so if you want to hang out with those people, and when he come through in that lowrider and start airing the whole blackout, and if you out there, you gonna get hit. That's why it's important for us to mentally and spiritually separate from this place. Because God is shooting with a shotgun. And if you know anything about shotguns, bullets spread. You know what I'm saying? So you don't want to be a part of that. Right? So just get a go to Daniel real quick. In 31. Daniel 2 and 31. And we're gonna read down to 45. It says, Thou, O king, sawest and behold a great image. This great image whose brightness was excellent stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. And the image of the head was gold and fine gold. His arms were of silver, and his belly and his thighs of brass. His legs of iron. Yeah. Matter of fact, no, I think we read that. Okay, let's go to Revelation. We're gonna end it with that. We went through Daniel explaining the different, parts of the statue. Go to Revelation 13, right? Start at 1. We're gonna read this, try to get through this whole chapter. So it says, and I stood in the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads, 10 horns upon his throne. I mean, upon his ah, having 10 horns upon his horns, 10 crowns, and upon his head the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of bears. So it's talking about, what the characteristics of a leopard. Talking about how these European people get down. They stalk, then it says their feet was like of a bear, meaning they're ferocious when they get ready to strike. That's how America get down. They stalk you, then they ferocious. And it says his mouth as a lion, meaning they talk boldly, they speak bold, they talk, you know, like they like they can't be touched. And it says, and the dragon gave him his power and his in the and his seat in great authority. And I saw one of his heads, and the dragon being the spiritual demon Satan, and I saw one of his heads as they were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. So now this is talking about the Renaissance, because the Roman Empire fell, but then the Roman Empire got revised during the Roman Empire, during the Renaissance, days. That's when they went around what they call I, iconoclasms, and they start changing all the different historical relics and repainting them, making them look white. That's where you get this Cesar Borgia picture, Caesar Borgia picture of what they call Jesus. The white guy that looked like a hippie. That guy. Um, and they worshiped the dragon, which gave the power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, "Who was like unto the beast, who was able to make war with them?" Because once the EU and the NATO came together, that's like a massive army. So it's like, and they got that North Atlantic Treaty Organization. That's what it's called. So if one country go to war, they all go to war. So it's like one jump, we all jump. Or how we say, like, one fight, we all fight, right? So they get down like that. So the rest of the nations is scared of that. And it says, and 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 there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemy, and power was given unto him to continue for 40 and 2 months. Right? That's 350 years prophetically when you get into it. He opened up his mouth in blasphemy against God. And how do you blaspheme against God? By putting itself as God, creating these different false images, and telling us that we nothing but, niggas and spicks and, you know, and Hamites, that we, have no connection, that, putting themselves in, as the authority, right? And it says, he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven, which is the so-called Israelites. I mean, not so-called Israelites. We are the Israelites. Which that dwell in heaven. Boom, boom, boom. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, which was the Israelites, because they made war with us during 70 A.D. when they, expelled us out of Israel, and then also when they kidnapped us from the western shores of Africa, right? Then it says to make war with the saints to overcome them, and the power was given to him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. So, like I said, America has their army base in almost every country in the world that you can think of. They got army bases all over the place, right? And it says, and all that dwelled upon the earth shall worship him, whose name were not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. And if any man have an ear, let him hear. So we understand that we're talking about the European power structure, right? And it says, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. So who took us into captivity? The so-called European power structure. It says, so saying, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. So it's talking about what goes around come around. You took a group of people, which was the Israelites, into slavery, and now you're going to be taken into slavery. And then it says these are the patience and the faith of the saints, because the saints, the real saints, is patiently waiting for their get back, for the time where they can have theirs, get free labor out of these people, so they can get the foot off their neck, and in what we call oppression that our people is going through, right? For we can take, take them and put them through what we went through. These are what the real saints is waiting for. Because some people might say, well, I don't want no slaves. But you don't understand, this is Bible prophecy, you know, and this is something that has to happen. So, and it says, he that leadeth to captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. And I behold another beast coming out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb and spake like a dragon. So once again, it's talking about America. Those two horns being the House and the Senate, and they, like I said, those are the two horns, and it spake like a dragon because America talked tough. And he exercised all the power of the first beast being the Roman Empire, before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast. Those deadly wounds was healed, and he doeth make great wonders, and so that make fire come down from heaven. How did he make fire come down from heaven? Hiroshima and Nagasaki, when they dropped the atom bomb on Japan, they made fire come from heaven, and that put the whole world in check because nobody at that time had nuclear weapons. So it says, um, said and deceived the whole world that dwelled on the earth and made miracles, which he had the power to do in the sight of the beast. Hold on, read that part. Let me read 13 again. And he dwelt, and he doeth great wonders, so that maketh fire come down from heaven onto the earth in the sight of man, and deceived them that which dwell on the earth by means of those miracles, meaning by him showing his military might to make an atom bomb, to these nuclear bombs, he was able to get power over the earth because during that time no other country had nuclear weapons, right? And it says, and deceived them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had the power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast. And what is the image? The image is white supremacy, right? Not white supremacy, how you might think, oh well, if you look like this and you look like that, then that's how. No, it's deeper than that. White supremacy is, you know, it's a philosophy. It's a way of life, you know, and it's not just about, well, you got you that color, I'm this color, and you know we're gonna do it like that. No, it's well deeper than that, because white supremacy affects all 9 areas of human activity, right? It's not just, you know, one thing. It's very more. It's more sophisticated than the average mind can think. It's not about the guy that's wearing a Confederate T-shirt screaming "nigga, nigga, nigga" all day long, right? So it says, boom, 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 uh, make an image of the beast which had the wound by the sword did live. So, like I said, so after that, the Renaissance era, they revised themselves. They came back into power, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. That the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So if you ain't, you know, you're not getting down with America program, they bomb you. They kill you. You know, even too when they had the Caesar Borgia picture, who people would look at as white Jesus. They, if you didn't buy when they came over to the Americas, and if you didn't worship that image, they killed you. And even now, if you're not getting down with the program America, they trying to force democracy on you. You know, they call it democracy, but democracy is nothing but colonialism, but this in the form of what they call democracy. Because America was set with, you know, go to these different countries talking about they pushing democracy, but in reality, they creating a puppet government. All right. Then it says, and he had power give life into the image of the beast, and that the image of the beast shall do should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he caused all, both small, great, and rich and poor, free and bond, to receive the mark in his right hand. Talking about the RFID chip, the radio frequency identification device, right? That they're trying to implant in people, right? That's why the American dollar is crashing, and they, you know, they're gonna implement the mark where you have to have this microchip to buy or sell, right? And that no man may buy or sell save he had the mark or the name of the beast in the number of his name. He is wisdom, let him have understanding. Talking about, you know, if you got the wisdom and understanding, because you got to understand, like I said, this book is written in code, and this book was written during the power of the Roman Empire. So John had to write this in such a way that only a few people can understand it, you know, or else it would have been complicated, and we wouldn't have it today. It says, whereas wisdom let him have understanding, count the number of the beast, for the number of a man, and his number is 636. So talking about what we call 666. It is not all that magical and spiritual. That's just the percentage. 66% of our people, when I mean our people, talking about the Black, Hispanic, and Native American, are going to fall victim to this mark of the beast. They're going to take the mark of the beast. So that's what the 666 thing is about. And it's not about 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 atoms, all that extra deep stuff that people be trying to make it out to be. It's 66% of the people that's labeled as Black, Hispanic, and Native American in this western part of the world is going to take the mark of the beast, you know, because a lot of our people just go along with the get along, you know, and just puppets and, you know, to the system of America. Because everybody wants to, you know, chase the dream of being rich and doing all this, you know, stuff, right? So that's what it's all about. So there you have it in a nutshell. America is Babylon, and we went through the different precepts to prove, how America, is Babylon. And like I said, so we kind of went through it a little fast because, like I said, it's a lot of. You look at my notes; it's a lot of scriptures. So I was trying to make it as quick as possible, you know. But like I said, so we understand that America is Babylon, and we are here in Babylon. Then our plan is to get delivered out of Babylon. Do not take the mark, and we got to be strong. So, for people that understand, want to know if the Bible's mention America and how does America play into the prophecies of the Bible, we see right here that America is going to, is labeled as Babylon, and America has a judgment that's waiting on them. So, and that's just what it is. So, like I said, of course, any questions, you can hit me up, messenger, whatever, even throughout the video, if you want to type a question, that's cool. I might not get to the question during the video because, sometimes when I be doing a lesson, I want to, try to stay on topic. But, of course, I will answer. Just like, my guy asked me about America being in Babylon, you know, and I answer it by doing a whole video explaining how America being mentioned in the Bible. So, with that being said, I'm going to say, Kwam Yasha Allah, all praises to the Most High, and Shalom.